Welcome to our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast, episode 9. Each week, we will unfold the most recent cyber attacks and will provide you with valuable insights on how to shield your business from these threats, along with practical steps and tips to enhance your cybersecurity.
I'm Martin Roberts, I'm Managing Director of New Ways, and I'm here with
Toby Stevenson, CTO of New Ways.
And it's episode 9. So Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast, episode 9, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year, Martin. Happy New Year, listeners.
Good Christmas, Toby?
Yeah, really good. I managed to have a little bit of a rest and relax.
Yeah.
Of course, it gives time for the brain to start thinking about all the horrible things that could possibly happen.
The whole week there, without interruption.
Exactly.
Other than turkey and pigs in blankets.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was a great Christmas. Good, as we say, relaxing time. Looking forward to this new year. 2024 has started. We're going to talk about our suggested New Year's resolutions and ones that we should keep.
Yes, hopefully these are ones that we can keep and keep for longer than January anyway.
Yeah, or the first week, which is what mine will be, I guess. I don't tend to make them for other things. So on these, I think we should recommend them. And any ideas on your first recommendation, or top of your list to our listeners?
Absolutely, and it's one that everyone should be able to keep. You know, this isn't a difficult one, and there's a huge reward behind it, and that's mandatory MFA, multi-factor authentication.
Okay, this is where you have a device, typically your mobile phone, you log on and you have to put in either a code or you have to approve the
Exactly, yeah. The principle is knowing something, which is your username and password, and then you have a second factor authentication which relies on something that you own or have, which is then something tied to your mobile phone, or sometimes you get a special hardware token.
Yeah, and we've said it before that we were at a conference last year where we listened to the stats around MFA and its effectiveness, and it's one of the best things that you can do.
Yeah, Microsoft did a study, and they stated at the time that over 90% of successful attacks that compromised 365 environments could have been mitigated with multi-factor authentication.
Now, most of our customers, we take them through this process. We took them through some time ago, actually, because we recognised very early on it was the right thing to do. Occasionally, we have challenges. And what are the complaints? What are the challenges, typically, which we should be overcome?
Common friction points, common objections. It takes me too long to log in. It's an extra step for logging in. I don't want to use my personal device with this.
Yeah,
they're the big ones that we normally see.
But balanced against what the risks are, that overhead, which frankly is minutes each week. I mean, I log into multiple systems, and I think I'm asked half a dozen times during the week.
There's definitely a misconception that it's going to pop up every time you try to log in, which is not the case with most modern MFA systems.
And I have to say, the evolution of the MFA systems has been really rapid, hasn't it, over the last couple of years?
Yeah. So MFA was introduced to try and make it harder for the bad guys to get into accounts. And so bad guys being how they are, they pivot and they adopt new tactics to try and thwart the multi-factor. So the first thing they did was they just started spamming the end user that was logging in with login requests.
Yeah.
So if they've managed to get the end user's password and they start logging in, they then get prompted with the MFA. They start just making hundreds of MFA requests to the end user on the hope that they will just click yes. We call it MFA bombing or MFA fatigue. The idea being is that the end user is concerned that they're going to be locked out of something, that they say, yes, I'm trying to log in. Because lots of people have seen that. They're just sat there at their machine and then they'll get a prompt and they may see that it's Teams that's doing something, or OneDrive's doing something, or another service is trying to re-authenticate and it's forced an MFA prompt. So they can occasionally come out of the blue, and particularly Microsoft have done a lot to try and counter these. They're not phantom, but they're unsolicited MFA prompts. And so to do that, they introduced a technology called number matching, which, unlike the older methods, which can be abused and spammed towards the end user, it throws up a number on the screen when you're trying to sign in. So there's a challenge and a response. It's solicited. So when you try to sign in, a number's on the screen, and then you get a pop-up on your phone saying, type the number in.
Yes.
As opposed to the old way, which was you try to sign in, and then your phone pops up.
Yeah.
So you've not engaged in something. So the idea being is if something pops up on your phone now, the chances of it being something that you've initiated and you don't know about it are very, very low.
And I guess the learning here, I guess, is that it may be that you tried MFA as an organisation a couple of years ago, or even a year ago, and the overhead, the trouble, the complaints from people were such that you gave up. You didn't do it. You didn't do it universally. I would say to anybody, if that's the case, try again, because it's actually getting easier all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, there will always be some edge cases where MFA is not going to work. So we see this often in environments where you can't take a mobile phone.
Yeah.
So shop floor environments, for example, or you would see it in some hospital areas where you can't take mobile phones in, or areas where there's flammable equipment, so chemicals, that kind of thing. But there are ways of still supporting MFA without using a mobile phone. Mobile phone is the most common way because virtually everybody on the face of the planet that uses a computer has got a mobile phone as well. Yeah. So that tends to be the default method, but that isn't the only thing. And the other thing I would say around MFA is any MFA is better than none. So
Agreed.
We're talking about number matching and that being one of the stronger forms.
Yeah.
And it's quite easy to poo-poo and dismiss the methods that involve SMS and things like that. So send you a text message with a code that you type in. They're not great compared to other forms of MFA. However, any form of MFA is better than no form of MFA.
Okay, and I think just to counter that argument that people have about using their own devices, I would say to anybody who is a bit chary about using their own devices, actually the trade-off between you being responsible for compromising your company's cybersecurity and being responsible one way or another but by not having MFA,
definitely,
it is a small price to pay for that using your own phone. It doesn't use any resources.
No, and no one can spy on you, and they can't take control of your phone or wipe your phone or anything like that. Yeah. And it's one of the things that when we talk to customers about our Cybersafe program, we want to try and shift that narrative from it being an IT thing, where IT is trying to spy you, to being a whole company engagement. Everyone plays a part in this. And again, so to echo your point, if you feel concerned that you're being asked to do this, you're playing your part in ensuring the security of your company.
Absolutely. Okay, so MFA is resolution number 1.
Yep. Resolution
number 2, thoughts?
I would say that the most common way that attackers get in is they log in. And that's through breach credentials. Right. Normally because people use bad passwords or they reuse passwords. Yeah. And therefore something like a password manager would be my resolution number 2.
Okay.
Look at how you can properly secure your passwords. Make sure you're using unique passwords. Yeah. And a password manager will do all that stuff for you. Don't save passwords in the browser. Yeah. For an attacker, it is trivial to pull them out. You're not doing anything to enhance your security by storing them in the browser. Use a password manager. It's
astonishing, isn't it, that I know people who use multiple browsers. And each one of those gives you the option to store passwords. Yeah. Comes up as a prompt each time. I guess you can disable that.
You can disable it through policy, yes. Okay. And if you were deploying a password manager, that's one thing that we would suggest as part of that process to stop people accidentally saving passwords in the wrong place.
Yeah, because if people get access to that browser, as you say, springing those credentials is really easy. Yeah.
And there are tons of videos on YouTube that where you can see this in action. Don't have to take our word for it, right? But you can see this in action. That these things happening.
You don't even have to go on the dark web to discover that.
No. There's videos on YouTube all about it.
That's really disappointing.
And you have to go. All you would need to do is go to a website that's got a malicious piece of code on it. Yep. And if your browser is not completely up to date, or the data can be pulled out. Yep. If you think of when you go to a website and the credential information is injected from the browser into a login page, that's all they do. Wow. They're doing the same thing.
Now the password manager that we use, and there are others available, allows us to do several things actually. It has a personal vault, which allows us to keep our personal passwords in as well as part of the deal. We also, some credentials we need to, I use the word carefully, share, because we need to get those, and it can store those in a sensible way.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's managed at an enterprise level.
Yes.
Yeah, so the benefit to that of it is it's not as clunky. I mean, I use iPhone. I've got my keychain, which is I store my personal stuff in, because I have a very careful separation between my personal browsing emails and such like. I use separate email addresses. So I never use my work email address for my personal stuff, and vice versa. And I think that's just a sensible thing to do.
It's just having that discipline to create that separation is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think but the password manager, we've got an enterprise one, and it works exceptionally well, I have to say. Again, if you tried something a couple of years ago and it was clunky and it was hard work, things, again, it's another evolution that's happened really quickly.
Absolutely, yeah. They're so much more streamlined. They integrate really well into the way that people work.
Yeah.
They're a lot more secure than any other way. I mean, Apple Keychain is a really good thing.
Yeah.
But the problem is that it's bound to your Apple ID.
Yes, absolutely.
Which, if that is not a company credential, you can't rescue those passwords back. And those passwords may be important for the company if that individual is no longer available.
Yes.
And corporate managed password vault solution goes some way to helping address some of those problems.
Yes, it solves a lot of issues actually, because for continuity of access to systems which may have been taken by an individual responsibility, you can manage that, and there's nothing bad about that. But for personal, again, the two things we talked about MFA and this password management. If you're an individual within an organisation and you are responsible for a breach through, doing the wrong things by not using MFA, by not using a password, or by using a simple password, it's not a good reputation to take away from any business if you're an individual within that who calls that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
particularly when it's so easy. So that's 2 of our 3 resolutions so far: MFA and password manager. Any thoughts on the third and final one?
Yeah,
Toby?
third and final. Bolster that human firewall. Give your people the tools they need to be able to defend the organisation from email-borne and other security-related threats. And we can do that through training. Make sure that people are trained so they know what to recognise, they know how to behave. Yeah. If you don't set those expectations, you can't be surprised if something happens that seems like it's not common sense, but if you don't tell people.
Yeah. Now, I think the interesting thing is there, I guess I was a bit of a training skeptic to begin with, because I think we all are in a way. What can I learn?
Yeah, particularly when you work in the IT industry. Yes. I know it all, I've seen it all.
And we use a particular product which I'm delighted with. And what happens, I get reminded. I might have grown a little bit when my reminder comes through that I must sign in. I do like the login process for that. It's a link they send me. I have to send an email to myself again, and we have a series of training methods. So there's quite an entertaining video. I've almost begun to like the characters in there and miss them when they're not there. I think we're on series 3 now. Second series wasn't as strong as the first, but I think they've made a good return in the third series. And then we've got other training as well, which is questions and such like. They're some of it seems obvious, but not always. Fascinating one I did yesterday actually was about QR codes. And I didn't realise that was being exploited in the way it was. So, for example, we've got people going around sticking dodgy QR codes over parking signs where you can go up and scan the QR code and it'll take you to a dodgy sign where you pay your money and give access to. And it's astonishing how. God, aren't these criminals resourceful?
Absolutely, yeah. If they only put their powers
to doing good
instead of evil.
Yes. We could solve all the problems in the world. So yeah, I was fascinated by that because I've been a bit worried about QR codes, and but on the other hand, I think, oh yeah, we could use those to help our customers. But it's a growing route actually, because there's a lot of them out there. and they're easily...
Yeah, exactly. And just to touch specifically on QR codes, it's an area where the email filtering software is lagging behind this change of tactic. So there are very few that actually scan the QR code on receipt and follow it to its destination to see if it's good or bad, because they just see it as an image and they let it through. Yeah.
So I learned a couple of things yesterday from the training, which I'm glad we've invested in, which was always check the URLs. And actually, I exercise a huge amount of caution these days. If I don't recognise where the email's from, I tend to ignore it. I tend to delete it. And now I'm doing the same thing with QR codes. And I think the other thing I've learned from this training as well is, and you'll be responsible for setting this up, and you're getting quite good at it. I say, I know this comes with a package, and it's all managed by us. But the phishing emails, the test phishing emails, and I've failed one in the last year, and that's because I looked at it on a mobile phone where the real estate is far less, and been out all day, as we all do, 100 emails in my inbox, and I wanted to get all sorts out before the next day, and I did that thing we all do, rush through, and I got caught. Now I have to say, there's 2 come through this week, and I have to say, I don't know if you're working hard on me to try and catch me again, Toby, with our managed service training there, but I almost got done. I was almost about to, and I was thinking, hang on a sec, because my email address was right. It was actually to my iCloud address that had been picked up, and I was thinking, this looks legitimate, and then that overwhelming sense of caution finally kicked in. It's like, no, I reported it. And it's quite nice actually, because you get congratulated by the software and you feel good and your score goes up on your dashboard and it's all lovely. Yeah, so training I think is a fabulous thing. And until you've been exposed to multiple attempts at resolving it and on spotting them, actually you don't get that second nature.
No, you don't. And I think that's the difference between engaging with a training program and just ticking a box. The tick box is very easy. We'll do training once a year. We'll issue out a half an hour's training or an hour's training video or something, and everyone can sit and go to sleep through that and then perhaps answer 5 or 10 questions at the end. Or the other approach is to do little and often, which is the approach that we take, and we deliver every few weeks short training content, but then I think probably more important than that is we supplement that with phishing simulation. So these are the things that you just mentioned that have managed to trick you on one occasion and nearly on several other times. As you to fail in a safe space, but see the tactics that are being used and how easy it is to get drawn into it. And what that does is almost subconsciously increases that level of skepticism and suspicion.
And I have to say, I've just recognised this while I've been talking, that the benefit I'm getting from it, that little and often and the right frequency is that's actually leaking into my personal space as well. That I'm getting phishing emails in my personal email thing. I've talked about that separation earlier on, and I'm spotting them far easier. And I'm much more careful. So I think 3 great things if your New Year's resolutions for this 2024, well worth investing the time and the effort and the money in, because the money it could save you is far outweighed.
And do you know what else I've noticed about these? And it's unintentional, but these 3 resolutions for 2024, they all revolve around an organisation's greatest asset, their people.
Yes.
This is all about helping you protect your people and helping them protect the business.
Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, well, thank you very much, Toby. Great discussion to this new year, to the start of this new year. We're all looking forward to 2024, the rest of it. And so I shall say Happy New Year, Toby.
Happy New Year, Martin.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of episode 9 of our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast. Thank you very much for listening. And to make sure you don't miss out on our future episodes, hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcast. For more cybersecurity wisdom and resources, head over to our website at cybersafe.co.uk.